Roland Willits, Omen Stories. You gotta be kidding. Roland selling fine china and sterling silver?
We leave the Orient and head to America. Or New York City.
New York City's in America.
I know. That's what I was laughing about. There's been Chinese here as long as has been, you know, almost Native Americans, and I think the ancestry comes over the what's the thing up in Alaska? The Aleutian chain, and it was all of Asian descent. So Chinese are here before us. So being an invader and living in Minneapolis, you wouldn't think I would get to know fancy stuff, would you? Well, I was about 19. And I had 2 jobs, but I needed another job to earn money. And so I got the newspaper on, was looking around for jobs. And they said, big sign, 19, you got to get this. Sell to young women. Wow! That's for me. That's for me. So I signed it and I called the guy, and I had my own wheels, and I had all the requirements he needed. And I had all the requirements I needed. Young girls. And he came to me, and he had this big suitcase. And he said, here's what we sell. And he opened it. And I looked at it and went, what? Well, I didn't say anything. I just sort of, as he pulled out these dishes. And then he opened another section, and he had all this spoons and forks stuff. It was pretty, but spoons. And then he says, I'm sending you out with my salesman. He has something. So he went out, and there were these young single working girls. And I walked in with this other fellow who was about 26, 27. Sort of just, he walked in nice, casual, easy going. Hi, Martha. Hi, Emily. And they sort of drooled over him as he walked in with all his, you know, with his case. And he said, you know, girls, you're going to get married one of these days, and the one thing you never quite get is a dowry of things to put at the fancy meals. Now, wouldn't it be nice to have one of these fancy meal setups? And let me show you what we have here. Imported from Germany, from the fine craftsman there. And he proceeded to open his case with finesse. And he pulled out these dishes. And he says, see the fine work on this porcelain. These are from Rosenthal. These are from, and he went through some major. And they said, and see the scrolling here on some of them. Aren't they beautiful? And you got plates, and you got littler plates, and you got bowls, and you got all this. He says, aren't those wonderful? And so he set them out, and he had them pick out the one that, if they could afford it, they would use. Then he said, let me show you the silver that you can see. Now, let me show you all the different place settings. So he took one out, and he took out this fancy knife. And the scrolling was intricate and beautiful. And then he took out another spoon, and he took out another knife, he took out another spoon, he took out a fork, another fork, another fork. And he put them on this place setting, on which he had put a beautiful man out underneath. And he says, wouldn't you like you and your new husband on that special occasion to sit down in front of this wonderful place setting? He says, and then he just stand back and he just waited. And then he waited, and they looked up at him like, he says, "You think you can't afford it, don't you?" That's why I'm here. You can get these special things for just a little money each month. Look at these place settings. Look at all the utensils you have for eating. He says, and you have all these other things, utensils, that you can put in. He says he had, so he pulled out, he had about like 18 things for one place. Wow. He says, well, he says, let's sit down with you and I can figure out how you can make these payments. And he figured it out for every one of those young girls. And man, I looked at it and I wanted to do that, and that was for me. Because these girls were doing it, he says, and one of the girls looks at him and he says, when he finished, he says, "You want this, don't you?" Yes. I looked at those settings and here's how you serve it. And he showed how you use each one of the different forks and spoons and knives for a wonderful place setting, and gave this beautiful picture. And I fell in love with those at the same time. And I really loved them. Well, we went back and I said, man, I want to try this. So the next day, I got my own case for an loaner, and I went over across the street because there were some nurses there, young working nurses. And they looked at me and their sort of friends. They said, "Hi, Roland, what can we help you with? I need to show you and present this stuff." Well, I sat down and I tried to go through the same story, and they all looked at me askance. I must not have had that same handsome face the other one. Because when I finished with them, I felt so bad with the looks they were giving me. I don't know how to do this for the other guy. Well, I actually went after it for a couple weeks, but I sort of gave the things back after a couple weeks. But I kept the idea that I fell in love with the same story. So when Terry and I got married, we went down to Macy's. And we went up in the stainless steel area because I couldn't afford silver. And they're hard to clean. And I looked at all of the stainless steel settings. And they had these stainless steel settings that had the fancy scrolls. And they were beautiful. They looked just like the silver this young man had. And I said, "Sweetie, that's what I want." She says, "Oh, for fancy meals?" I says, "No, for every meal. That's what I want at my place setting. So I feel wealthy every day when I sit down to eat." Well, you know, we've been married 33 years. Do you know what I sit down and eat with to this day? That same stainless steel, beautiful place setting that I purchased 34 years ago. And it's still beautiful, and it still makes me feel rich. Thank you.
Old men stories returning home to find out young single women are not pushovers.